All right, welcome to the Rant, the best bowling show in the world. On this show, I have a very special guest, Don Yoshihara. Don, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, Beans. Thanks for giving me a little opportunity to join in and participate. Everything's well.
Thank you for blessing me with your presence. First of all, before we get in the interview, how's your family? Is everybody safe?
Everybody's healthy. I think I'm in a little bit different situation than most, as with the exception of my wife being home more, and obviously the school kids doing school from home. It's business as usual. I work overnights, and
Mhm.
my job has maintained everything. So we haven't felt the effects like a lot of other people are. We're not stir crazy. We're not going nuts inside the house. But luckily, everybody, immediate family close to me is healthy. Bills are paid, food's on the table. So I feel very fortunate at this time when I see a lot of people going through a lot of hardship.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So let's get into this. How long have you been bowling?
Literally throwing the ball since I was 2 or 3 years old. Started, rolling it between my legs. Pretty much grew up at a local center, which is now closed, Florida Lanes in Tampa. My grandmother used to be the head coach at Hillsborough Community College when they had a college program. She
Mhm.
had one of the best college programs, one of the men's college programs in the country. She had guys like Tom Kreitz, Larry Barwick, Dan Abreu, all these people, a bunch of guys that went out on tour. So bowling was just something we did. I don't ever remember a time in my life where there's not a moment or a time that doesn't revolve either being in a bowling center or affiliated with bowling.
So that's at least 35 years.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And you're a Brunswick staffer. When did you first join Brunswick?
This is my fifth year being affiliated with Brunswick. It's just been a really good relationship for what I hope is both sides. They have benefited me tremendously, just not only as obviously providing equipment and accessories and things like that, but just as someone to represent the brand. I think there are very, you know, Brunswick's been in the bowling business forever, so it's a distinct honor to be able to carry that crown on your shirt and to say you're part of that team. So, a lot of people just think, oh, being on staff is just getting free bowling balls and just
Hmm.
bowling and everything, but it's a lot more involved. You got to get out there and interact with people and things like that. So it's a privilege for me, and I don't try to take it lightly.
I mean, the crown, you mentioned the crown. I mean, this is a symbol for a company that has a 100-year history. There's a legacy. When they say Legend of the Crown, you've got, Walter Wade Williams, Bob Lerner Jr., Parker Bone Jr., and then some of the current legends like Jason Sterner, and you've met a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to know a lot, interact with them, and compete against them. When in back 10, 12 years ago when the tour was off, the South region uh, was like a tour stop. There was no tournament that you'd go to in the summer that you didn't have probably 30 national titles. That's even if Walter wasn't in the building. Walter's in the building, that would double immediately.
Hmm.
But you'd make match play, and of the say 16 or 24 guys in match play, you'd have 18 or 20 of them with national titles, and maybe even a dozen of them with multiple national titles. Some had
Wow.
majors, Hall of Famers. Anytime you want to turn, or you made match play, I should say, or God, if you were fortunate enough to win something in the South during those days, you earned it.
Right.
It wasn't. I'm not saying that you win any tournament, obviously you're doing something right, but you won a regional back in those days. You could hang your hat on it.
Absolutely. Now, I've been asking a lot of people this question. How many 300s and how many 800s do you have?
I physically do not know the number, and it's not it's not just because of trying to boost my ego or anything like that. My guess is the 60 to 70, maybe 80 300s, and somewhere in the same numbers of 800s. I've been very fortunate to bowl for a long time at a decent level. I've had my dips and my valleys and stuff like that, but been just very fortunate to be around a lot of good competition and learned a lot from a lot of people. So I wish I had an actual number, but
No, that's okay. I looked you up on bowl.com and the list was long, so let's just keep it that way. What is your highest series ever?
I had 863 actually just about 10 years ago at our local association city tournament in the team event. I started with the front 26, and and missed a move, left a split, and then struck out. So I had 35 out of 36. That was a fun day.
You missed a move and then struck out. So you like probably left really upset, even though you should be really happy.
Yeah, yeah, well, yes, it's a double-edged sword because you think about it, you're like, wow, 860, 35 out of 36, that's a pretty cool day. And then when it's, you give a little time to settle in and reality hits you that, wow, I was one strike away from perfection, and
Wow.
that changes everything.
Oh
So,
yeah.
like I say, it's a double-edged sword.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know anything about numbers like that.
And the funny part is in the center that I bowled at, Brandon Crossroads,
Hmm.
center here just outside of Tampa. Not only was it not the high series that year, another guy had beat me later, a couple weeks later, shot I think like 868 or something like that. But the center record is Jared McComas has that with 878. So big numbers
878.
and everything, but not even close to being, not even the high for the year. It was not even the high for the building.
Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, Jared, he's such a boss. I'm going to interview him one of these days, by the way.
That would be humorous.
Oh yeah. All right. So your style is really unique. And while we're talking about this, I'm going to put a video up so that the bowlers can see it because I have a couple shots of you. And you hold the ball on top of your thumb and you roll it out at an angle. My question is, have you always bowled like this, or did that develop later out of a need?
it it I mean, I can't, obviously I wouldn't say it's been forever, but as long as I can remember sort of being competitive, when I really started getting into wanting to bowl more, every weekend and trying to actually make, a little side money of doing it, that's when it sort of kind of evolved. I started working with a former senior pro in the area, Ted Fraley, about the mid 90s. And basically, I could bowl good in league and in tournaments when there was, fresh oil or there was, enough oil. But when they started hooking, because I would hit up on the ball so much, I
Mm-hmm.
struggled because I couldn't get the ball through the fronts.
Mm-hmm.
So he started working with me on hitting through the ball as opposed to hitting up on it. And then once we got that, that's when it kind of created where he was like, why don't you just, as opposed to yanking it back, why don't you just roll it back on sort of like your forearm, or like you say, my thumb. Also, another benefit for me is I have a thumb that's really short. It's small, basically. I
Mm-hmm.
call it my chicken nugget. So it almost is like like a two-hander or someone that palms the ball. My thumb really is just there just for a little bit of guidance. But
Mm.
the ball does sort of almost rest on my wrist or my forearm.
Yeah.
So
So
it just
you're almost a no thumber in a way.
almost, yeah, as no thumb, or with a thumb as a no thumber as you could be, I guess you could say. A lot like I relate it a lot with the explain how Smallwood throws the ball,
Mm-hmm.
how his thumb's in it, but it's barely in it. It's just kind of there for a little bit of stability at the beginning.
It's funny you mentioned that because he throws a Detroit half thumb. Did you ever try one of those?
I hadn't, and it's funny. I hadn't even heard of it until about like 8 or 10 years ago when he first, made his. I bought a lot of amateur stuff with him back in the mid '90s,
Mm-hmm.
and or late '90s, I should say. But when he kind of made his scene when he won the world championship, 2003, 2004, I guess it was. That's when it came out, and a couple people had mentioned you should give that a shot. But at that time, I was bowling better than I had. I was bowling. I say, I shouldn't say, sort of at my best. So I didn't want to mess up anything.
Yeah, don't fix what's not broken.
Exactly.
Oh, I get
Which
it.
now might not be a bad idea. Always willing to try something new because, never hurts.
Right. I mean, We're going to talk about that. I've got some questions for you about that. Okay, so let's shift gears for a second. What is your favorite ball from Brunswick you have ever thrown, and why?
Well, I'm gonna break it into two parts.
Okay.
Of the current stuff, in the last few years, melee jab is hands down my favorite.
Which one?
I obviously the original was what
Okay.
I would prefer just because of that's what I first got my introduction with and what I remember the most. The SE is pretty close. It's a great option, and I'm glad they brought it back out because it definitely filled that area that was missing. But probably back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they had a ball called the Command Zone. It was just a light bulb weight block, just a mid-range reactive resin. I love that ball. I could use it on anything. If I, just control my break point or control my speed. It was just one of those balls where it didn't matter what was happening or what you're bowling on. You just felt like you had confidence with it. So those light bulbs
So it was a
were amazing.
cheater ball.
So yeah, pretty much. It just gave me it was a ton of versatility and kind of let me do whatever I wanted to. I felt like I had control of the lane. It let me do my tricks that I like to do as opposed to having to always change balls 9 times.
I'm surprised you said the melee jab because I know you destroyed everybody with that, but you also, racked up a bit of cash with the Quantum Fire Pearl.
I had when that ball came out, it was just one of those things where it just everything clicked. I had a run for what was it? It seemed like every other week in the league, I was bowling 300 or 800 with that ball for almost an entire quarter. It was just one of those things, where a combination of the stars and the moons align and everything's just perfect.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason. There's no explanation. It's just one of those things. It's almost like when you go in a slump for no reason.
Yeah.
Well, I had the opposite side, and
Right.
and then just out of the blue, it just disappears.
Well, I think a lot of people forget that, the best, scores a lot of times aren't necessarily because of how well you threw the ball, but how you matched up against the condition. Right?
Absolutely.
So if you got the right ball during the right time with the right condition, you might go on a run and score a lot. Okay, so you just mentioned the melee jab SE, and so my question to you is, how do you like that one and the uppercut, and how are they different?
Big fan of both. I really was impressed with the uppercut when it came out. That is pretty much always in my bag. Obviously, prior to what's going on now when we stopped bowling, the uppercut when I did have to kind of just knock the surface off of it when I first got it because it was just a little too skid snappy for me. So I just wanted to bring the break point a little, mellow it out a little bit. But now it's almost one of those versatile balls where if I get into a situation where if I want to, throw it a little firmer or, which, firm for me is all of 16 miles an hour, maybe. But I just feel like I have control of the lane and I can really control my break point with that ball where, it's one of those where I just feel like I can tweak things on the fly where you always have those certain balls where it's like, if this ball works, it's great, but if it's not, put it away. I feel like I have a little more versatility with the uppercut.
Okay. Yeah. And it's got that texture pearl, particle pearl.
Love the fact that they're bringing that back. It definitely was, like when we talked to Mo about it, can't call it particle, but that's fine.
Fuzzy pearl.
Exactly. Fuzzy pearl. But it definitely was a need. And you can see with the balls they've made, conspiracy theory, uppercut, now with the results. Exactly. I mean, I literally got that ball the last day we bowled. I got to throw maybe a dozen shots with it. And then, the world shut down. So looking forward to when it comes back to try to give it a go because everything that when that ball came out was just phenomenal.
Yeah. So let me ask, since you just mentioned it, so what do you think of the results and why is it so special?
Well, it's another one of those Mo Pinnell specials. He's always been one step ahead of the game with technology and using science to his advantage. You've seen it with all the success in his history. Now, he's had some eggs too, don't get me wrong, but he's had a lot of balls that have changed the game. And this was sort of his answer to the USBC taking away weight holes.
Right.
He's created motion through cover and core combination that mimics what you could get with a weight hole or even a motion hole, depending on what you prefer.
Sure.
And that, said, I got maybe a dozen shots with it, but I could definitely see that ball is going to be special. I can see that ball being used a lot, especially, those mid games in tournaments when you're starting to get a little bit of wiggle on the break point because you're getting a little push down lane. But yet they're, so it's not to where the fronts are totally gone. So you don't have to muscle it, but you can't get it to make the corner with something weak. So that's going to fit in really well. And, the little bit of exposure I've had with that ball.
A little bigger weight block to give you a little more torque and push through at the very end.
Right, but not toward so strong toward it grabs in the front so much. So it's that
Right.
perfect combination.
Absolutely. Now Brunswick has made some changes and they have incorporated some new motions in the last couple of years. And I'm not talking about the brands. I'm talking about just specifically to Brunswick. What do you think about where the brand is going and what they've done with their motions?
Yeah, they had that stigma for so long where if you throw a Brunswick ball, it's going to hook at your toes and you'll never see any shape past the lane markers. So they really focused the R&D guys, Brian Graham and Nick Smith and all those guys really focused on trying to get away from that, and they didn't want to go the other extreme, pure skid snap, but creating a variety of shapes,
Hmm.
and I really think they've created a line top to bottom that you can literally pick out 6, 8 pieces and be fully prepared for just about anything.
Sure.
Obviously you're still going to have to use some of your personal tricks or whatever you choose to do, to either make a ball to create a shape, a little bit of roll, a little bit of touch, whatever it is that you do. But prior to, say, what, early mid 2000s, maybe
Hmm.
2004, 2005, you really did. They had 3 balls. I mean, the year Rash won Bowler of the Year, he won that almost throwing 2 balls.
Hmm.
So I mean, he did it. What he did that year was phenomenal.
Right.
But yeah, they've really created a versatile line from top to bottom for, you can be Joe League bowler, you can be your up and coming scratch bowler, or you can be the tournament competitor. And I really feel you can build a line from top to bottom that will allow you to compete on anything.
I mean, Prizm Hybrid is a ridiculous piece. It's a hybrid that gives you that control of a hybrid, but snaps like a pearl. And
Right.
that,
That's the thing that nobody, I think it got kind of hidden a little,
mm,
until, when you saw, Tommy Jones, when he's, first started coming, when they bought out EBI and stuff, got a little exposure with him throwing the ball. And then, you saw a lot of the EBI guys when they first were able to throw everything. That was like the ball you saw on everybody's bag.
mm,
And I think it kind of brought the attention to, wow, this ball is special.
yeah. Or Mika talking about the melee jab.
Yeah,
SE.
I mean, can you get a better compliment from Mika, who's literally won on almost every continent, has won at every level, and for him to come out and say, it's the most, what do you say, the most versatile ball he's ever thrown?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, I mean, that
ridiculous.
you can't get a better compliment than that from someone like him.
Okay. Now, if Brunswick and Hammer, because everything's important in their factories now, come out with a new purple hammer, are you going to get one?
It's to the point. Don't you have to? I mean, I'm on the same sort of avenue as Rash was when he talked about, he's not a big urethane fan. I don't have a urethane ball in my bag, but I think if you have that opportunity, because that ball is so different than all the other urethane balls that are out there, it's I think you have to have it in your bag, just as a what if.
I had a bowler commenting on the social media who was telling me that it's the Ferrari of urethane balls.
I mean, can you argue with him?
Well, and so if you look on eBay right now, some of them are selling for 3, 4, even 5. One of them was at $600 on eBay, and they had 35 bids. Somebody paid
That
$600 for one of those.
and to each his own. I mean, if that's what they feel is everything's worth what you can get someone to pay for.
Sure.
Me personally, no,
Right.
but hey, that's the world we live in, and if that's what someone wants to do. But yeah, if given the opportunity and they remake it, and it's provided to us, sure, I'm gonna, just to say, even if I never use it, I at least got to say I gave it a shot,
Sure.
because I've
So,
seen some of the success people had with it.
so I'm going to take two words, put them together, and I want to know what your reaction is. Black Widow Dynamicore.
Oh, I mean, if you talk about a kid in a candy store, or putting everything together for a perfect scenario, it doesn't get much better than those 2 words,
Whew.
or that combination. Because you look at when the Widows first came out. I mean, Doug Kent, the year he won Bowl of the Year, he almost threw the Black Widows exclusively.
Right.
And you go back to his World Championship show, or the show when he won the Masters, he literally started, up 10-12, and then just started slow looping the ball, and the ball came back from everywhere. You didn't get much better than a Black Widow. That gas mask core has been remade so many different times in so many different combinations because it's that good.
It doesn't
I
get old.
mean,
It's one of the top 5 cores of all time. And I think I remember we talked about this. Brian Graham, the guy who invented it, is now back with Brunswick, and the core is now back in his control.
it's back where it started. I
Right.
mean, Brian created this, when he was working with Hammer, and he used to always joke with us that whenever he would go to Bowl Expo, he'd always walk by the EBI booth, and he's like, just wanted to come see what you guys are doing with my invention, as a joke. So the
Right.
fact that he's, been, brought back to, his baby, I guess you could say, and what possibly can be coming out is exciting.
That's phenomenal. Okay, so I got a question I'm asking everybody. You know me, and you and I are friends, but Chris Beans is a foodie. So, what is your favorite food?
Pizza. I think,
Good
yeah,
man.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good steak. I love good barbecue. I love good Italian food. I'm fat for a reason.
I'm on a seafood diet. I see it, I eat it.
That's right. But I swear by, I love pizza. And, we've had our adventures out, between bowling centers and pizza places and everything. And I'll try pizza from anywhere, just because you'd be surprised at some of the weird places you'll find a good pie.
Speaking of which, so Countryside Lanes, we tried their pizza. I'm going to plug them right now. If you have never been to Countryside Lanes, when they open back up, go there and go get yourself a Meat Lover's pizza. It was the best pizza I've had in a very long time.
For one of those things where we were just kind of, late afternoon in a bowling center, and I was like, hey, let's just grab something to eat here, and we ordered it. Me and you both were like, I can't believe how good this was. The fact that it came from a bowling center, it was, the crust was crisp, the toppings were fresh, it had everything you'd want from a good pizza. It was on there, and I mean, this has been what now, 4 months ago, and we've literally talked about it every opportunity we get. That as soon as we're gonna go back and try it again.
Every time we get pizza, Matthew Mayhew shows up.
Well, he's never been one to turn out a free meal.
Right. Got it. Okay. So what is your best competition story?
Well, and I'm not one to kind of, toot my own horn, but I'll go back to, I won the regional in Lakeland twice. I won it in like 94, 95, 96 as an amateur. I just had a really good afternoon and led the tournament. But when I rejoined in 2003, I just squeaked into the show. I shot 269 in the position round and went from like 9th to 5th to just squeak into the show. And the step ladder, I climbed the step ladder to win. I beat Norm Duke the first match. I beat Patrick Allen the second match. I beat Chris Collins the third match, and I beat Tom Daugherty for the title.
Wow.
So, at the time, only Norm and Patrick had national titles. But, looking back now, every one of those in the step ladder ended up being a national title list. And obviously, Norm's got 40 titles. Collins has, he won one. He's got I think he has a senior title now. Obviously, PA, Bowl of the Year. He's got, 10 or 11, maybe 12 victories. And then, Daugherty's got 2. Plus, I think Daugherty has 14, 16 regional titles. So that's my favorite, my claim to fame, I guess you could say. That's probably my, you look back at that step ladder, that was pretty fun. And just one of those things where you get lined up,
Yeah. And what is your funniest bowling competition story?
Well, we'll go back to Mr. McComas.
Okay.
We were bowling the Pepsi League in Tampa at Penn Chasers Midtown, and he had 300 the first game, and he's up with the front 11. So he's got 23 in a row, and he's probably 2 pairs away from us. So at this point, this is early 2000s, so back-to-back 300s weren't something you'd seen. I mean, still you don't see a ton of it, but so pretty much the entire center had stopped bowling.
Okay.
And they're watching, and he gets up there and he threw a bucket, and everybody, oh, and just as the lull comes down, just to be, just to kind of like make light of the moment, I drop my ball on the approach and just start laughing hysterically just to try to make a good time out of it. And to this day, anytime he gets an opportunity, he always likes to bring it up and bust my guts about it a little bit. But, one of those stories where you can look back 10, 15, 20 years later, and it's always a good conversation piece.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Okay, so we're talking about the game. You and I have had several technical discussions, long, philosophical discussions, and you've been talking lately about feel. Can you talk about your approach to feel with the game?
Yeah, for me, feel's always been the biggest thing. I'm not one of those that, I've been around a lot of people where, they'll sit there and they'll play with tape, for 20, 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there are certain things that I need to be comfortable with. And for me, tape is a big thing. It's I'm I'm all about, two pieces in, two pieces out, combination of white and black tape to try to get the right thickness and things like that. But the biggest thing for me is just making sure that, I have the texture on the front side of my thumb to where I try not to, it reduces my grip pressure. So I'm not gripping it so much like a softball like I used to. And as I've gotten a little older, the feels become even more important, because I can't do the tricks I used to do, say 10, 15 years ago. So, if it doesn't feel good, it's never going to come off your hand, or you're not going to trust it to come off your hand as good. And, one or two bad shots a game is just going to throw everything off. So, for me, the biggest thing, just like I said, tape and making sure that my grip pressure is where I like it.
Yeah, because you got these bowlers who all they want to do is talk about theory and hypothesis about and analyze every single shot. You can get lost in that stuff.
Correct. I think you'll see a lot of people sometimes they'll overthink, the game. You'll have a lot of people out there that, they leave a ring 10 or ring 7, depending on right-hander or left-hander, and they don't think it's, that's part of the game. This is one of the few sports that you can compete in where you can do everything right and still not achieve perfection.
Or do everything wrong and shoot 300.
Bingo, exactly. And everybody's been on both sides of that, where you just throw a shot horribly and somehow you strike, and then sometimes you execute perfectly and it's ring 10, solid 8, whatever. But like you said, you can't dwell on that thing. It's just part of the game. You've got to accept it and just know that eventually, it might not always be perfectly evened out, but you're going to get good breaks and bad breaks. And like you said, the more you dwell on it, the more you're just hurting yourself. That shot's already done. You did your best, and go on.
Miguel Feliz, one of my favorite people to train with, good buddy of mine, gave me a piece of advice once. I thought it was great. He said, short-term memory wins the game.
Perfect. Let it go. It's over and done with.
Move on.
And move on.
Yep.
And probably one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a Southern region legend, Stony Baker. He told me, this is 20 years ago now, I guess, that if you're bowling and you can't miss left a little and you can't miss right a little, you're playing them wrong. He's like, don't let anybody fool
Right.
you to let them think, or let you think that they are splitting boards every shot. It's just not possible. Now, obviously, everybody's window for error is greater or bigger depending on your skill level, but don't ever think that everybody's throwing the exact same shot every time, because it's just not possible. And when you start realizing that it's okay to miss a little, the game now, in my opinion, is whoever can miss by the most and still strike is probably going to be the one that comes out on, closer to the top at the end of a tournament or a block or whatever.
You're making a good point, because there's a lot of people who like to hate on area bowlers, yet they don't realize they are an area bowler because they've never had their ball motion measured in specto. When you look at the guys on the PBA Tour, those guys are repeating shot after shot. I think Simonson recently was within half a board for 6 shots in a row. I don't know if we know anybody in the local Tampa area that can do that consistently, especially on a sport pattern, much less a house.
Correct.
Pattern.
Right. And that's just, like you said, they want to sit here and say, oh, you're playing, this area, or that. Everybody kind of is, like you say. There's a reason those guys are out there, and there's a reason those guys are making a living and doing it for as long as they have, because they are the best in the world. The difference between, say a guy like, Chris Barnes, Norm Duke, Simonson, and your 230 league bowler is night and day.
Mm-hmm.
on a sport pattern or something, 2-to-1, 1-to-1 ratio, things like that. And I don't think our professionals get the respect they deserve, because for, Joe novice sports fan, well, the guy I work with, says he bowls and he shot 300, 800 the other night, and he averages 230, but I just watched the guy on TV shoot 185. So what's the difference?
Right.
And that's where we tend to lose credibility, because they don't understand the difference in our professionals and mom and pops that just do it one day a week, go have a couple beers with their friends.
Sure. So you've been around for a while. The game has been changing a lot. What do you feel like has been the greatest change to the game in the last 10 years?
Well, I think everybody's it's, well, it's a good and a bad, I guess you could say. But I think everybody's education level,
Hmm.
you've really, even your 180, 190 average bowlers, they do their research now. They get on the internet, they do their diligence. They're researching the differentials, they're researching the RGs. They're reading consumer feedback. Um, you have a higher educated public now
Sure.
that really knows the difference from, say, a target zone to a quantum to a Prizm.
Right.
They know what they're looking for, they know the difference. And where, say, you know 10, 15 years ago, you walked into a pro shop and they're like, I want a ball to do this. The pro shop guy told them, this is the ball I recommend because that's the affiliation they had with their, the manufacturer, or that was the good deal they got that week from their distributor.
Hmm.
And the bowler said, okay, put holes in it.
Right.
So the fact that we have a better educated public and a better educated, sense of consumer is changed the game dramatically. But I think it's also hurt the game because you also see where those 180, 190 average bowlers, or even sometimes the higher average bowlers, they have a built-in expectation because they've done their research. Well, this ball should do this. I should be able to throw it here, do this, and it should strike. Well, not everything. There's different variables involved. But
Topography.
correct. Oh, I mean, there's so many things. Weather. I mean, we see it so much here in Florida, but I
Yep.
say it's a double-edged sword. But I think that we just have such a better educated consumer now that it's really created a better purchasing, I guess you'd say, or a better buyer, I guess you could say, from the pro shop aspect.
Okay. Now, as we're wrapping up, one of the things that you and I were talking about is you have a social media post out there pushing to support all the local businesses, and it's really been well received. Can you talk about what that's about and why it's important?
Obviously, the world has been turned upside down with coronavirus, COVID-19, and it's a different world we live in today from a month ago, and it's going to be a different world when this all changes. And the biggest thing I want to try to, and I'm not, I don't say I'm an advocate or anything like that. I just want to kind of get it out there that we all have those local businesses, be it a sandwich shop, be it a mechanic, be it a, vacuum repair shop, whatever it is, that we've gone to for years. Our parents went to, our neighbors went to, and we always go there, I should say, because we trust in them. They make a good
Hmm.
product. They do a good job. When my son wants a sponsor for his little league team, or somebody's daughter wants a sponsor for their cheerleader, they don't reach out to big corporations and ask for $50 or $100. They go to those local businesses,
Hmm.
and those local businesses have always done their fair share of supporting
They've been
little
there.
leagues, yeah, bowling clubs, everything.
Hmm.
Let them have a car wash in their parking lot or whatever. And those are the businesses that I truly think that when this does settle down, even now, we got to make sure survive, because they run on such small margins that I'm
Hmm.
sure this is devastating a bunch of them. And I see it now where you see so many of these businesses that are still trying to pay their employees and still trying to do what they can just to survive, where they're reinventing themselves, be it takeout, to go.
Wood fired pizza, for example, local here in Tampa.
I mean, what that man did, he's done it twice now, where he's taken
Yeah.
out two $50,000 line of credits to make sure his employees are still getting paid
Yep.
while all this is going on. I mean, how can you ask for a better employer?
And he makes really good pizza. I've had that pizza. It's phenomenal.
We ordered the day that the first story came out, we ordered it that night, and I can't even begin to tell you how good that pizza was. We've had it twice since. I tell you something I noticed last night when I ordered Uber Eats for work. As one, they've waived all the delivery fees for local businesses, which
Oh,
I think
that's
is kind of
fantastic.
cool. Saves you a couple bucks or whatever. But they've added an option now where, like, I ordered from a local Cuban sandwich shop, and I had the option where I could add a $5 donation to my bill that went 100% of that donation went directly to the business. And Uber is going to match up to $5 million donations that they're going to spread out to all these local businesses.
That's fantastic.
Little things like that go a long way to make sure that these things survive, because like I said, without these local businesses, what are you going to do when you need a sponsor for your little league team or your bowling club, or, you know, just want to go have a good sandwich,
Yep.
so
Totally agree. Support your local businesses. They need your help. They've been there for you. It's time for us to be there for them. And of
absolutely.
course, we can get fat in the process because local businesses, all that stuff tastes a lot better anyways when it comes to food, or if you want to get your transmission fixed or get your hair done. I wish I had hair because I have none, but that's what it's all about. And I really think that's an amazing thing that you've done. And I guess last but not least, what are you going to do when this quarantine stuff is all over?
I'm ready. Honestly, I just am looking forward to getting around my friends again.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. The game is what brings us all together.
Hmm.
But I miss the idle joking. I miss the banter. I miss the laughs. That's the stuff that to me makes bowling bowling. Just
Hmm.
getting around our people, laughing, cutting up, making fun, just having a good time again. I mean, the bowling is the reason we get together, but it's the friends and the people that we've created as this family that I can't wait to be around again. To poke fun of and make fun of, or just
As you
be back
decimate them
to
with the latest Brunswick equipment.
just to be back to having fun, because that's what we all look forward to. Not too many of us are getting rich through this bowling thing, but we've definitely created some lifelong friendships and bonds that will stand the test of time. So that's the stuff that I miss the most.
100%. Folks, Don Yoshihara, thank you for joining me. And as usual, more updates are coming. Thanks for watching.